right, welcome back to another episode of the Baddest Lifter podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how to become a strong lifter after 40. Is it any different, and are there things that you need to know so that you can keep getting stronger in your 40s and beyond? And we're going to go over four main things that are different. I think sometimes when I talk to people who are in their 40s and 50s, they don't believe they can become stronger, or that was something that they did when they were younger, but now they're too old for. And I kind of want to break that myth and say that, like, you can still get stronger, build muscle, become a confident lifter, but there are some things that have changed that aren't going to be the same as, like, maybe when you were training in your 20s and 30s, or if you're at the gym, there could be some things that are different than some of the other younger people are doing in the gym that you might not be doing, and I want to kind of talk about those differences. One thing I want to mention as well, though, is that great exercises build strong lifters at any age. So sometimes people will think that, like, barbells are for young people, or like older people need to stick to bands or light weights for safety reasons, or they shouldn't lift too heavy, any of those kind of things. And all of that's, like, not true. Um, Barbells work great. Machines still work great. You can still lift heavy for your strength level. There's no, like, exercises that I would say that are like, oh, dumbbell rows are for 25 and under, but like bands are for 40 and older. Like, none of that exists. And I know some of that exists online and is advertised as such, but, like, that's really just not the case. That, like, a lot of people that I work with in their 40s and 50s do use barbells. Machines will have phases of their training where they lift heavy, but they don't, like, yeah. So that's that myth. I just want to break that entirely. Now, that's kind of like the things that are the same. So exercises are pretty similar. You can still get stronger and build muscle. I will say that, like, how fast you build muscle and get stronger can be slower than, like, if you were to compare it to a 21-year-old. But that doesn't mean that you can't. As people get older, it is easier to lose muscle over time if you're not focusing on it. I think, like, this especially happens, like, 40 plus. But that doesn't mean you're going to lose muscle. If you're strength training regularly, if you're still getting stronger, the likelihood of you losing muscle is going to be very low, but you have to be on it. Whereas, kind of like someone who's 21, 22 might not lose any muscle at all, even if they're, like, not training, as kind of an example. So it's something you have to have, like, a real plan. Like, if you want to build muscle in your 40s, you can definitely do that, but you have to, like, have a plan about it. Otherwise, muscle mass does tend to go away over time. One thing as well that's really important is that, like, random workouts stop working. So, just to give myself an example, I'll use myself as an example. So when I was, 19, 20, 21, I was still working out, but I would basically go in the gym and be like, oh, like, let's just try out things, as kind of an example, or use all the chest machines today, or, like, just kind of every day was, like, kind of like a new adventure. Um, Not training I'd recommend today. But I was still getting stronger. I was still putting on muscle mass, getting stronger. And honestly, that was because I was 19, 20, 21. Is that you're very resilient. You don't need as good of form to get stronger. You should have good form. And, like, that would, if I were to go back, I would have changed that about myself. We're here now. But that's just, unfortunately, just not the case when you're older. That you need, like, a real plan, you need structure, you need, like, proper rest periods, rest times, days off, like when to go heavy, when not to go heavy. There's, like, a whole structure to it. The random workouts just unfortunately stop working. That is something that you can get away with in your 20s, but not so much in, like, your 40s and beyond. And I think when some people believe they can't get stronger anymore, I think it's because in their 20s they did do random workouts and they worked. And so when they get older and the random workouts stop working, that some people will come to the conclusion is like, oh, well, I'm just too old for this now. This doesn't really work anymore. My response to that would be is like, no, you can still get stronger, but now you need like structure. Now you need, like, a plan. It needs to, like, make sense. It can't just be random exercises every single day. It can't be different movements whenever you feel like it. Like, there's a whole structure to it, which kind of brings me to my key point that I think is very, very important is that like if you want to get stronger and build muscle, you definitely can, but you need a workout plan. You need something that actually has like sets, reps, exercises, ideally made specifically with your goals in mind. Like, how do you want to get stronger? Do you want to be strong in and out of the gym, like you're focusing on quality of life? Or do you just want to like deadlift 200 pounds off the ground? Both are fine, but the training is going to look a little bit different there. So, having a real workout plan with real structure, ideally made as specific to you as possible. Um, yeah, the random workouts, and like this becomes like more non-negotiable like as you get more into strength training. Again, like when I was 19, 20, 21, I could kind of do anything, right, and get stronger. And you know, I I'm learning from a mistake there that like that is how training should be. Um, you just don't get that luxury the older that you get if you really do want to build muscle and get stronger. Random workouts can be fun for exploration or trying new things or having like some variety that makes it interesting. I get that. But if like the goal is like in 3 to 6 months, I want to be like noticeably stronger, this is where like a real plan becomes more mandatory than it used to be before. Especially if you've been training for a long time and you're in your 40s now, it is just unlikely that going to the gym and doing random stuff is going to result in you being stronger 3 months from now, 6 months from now, etc. So keeping that in mind. I think the last one, I actually don't have it on my list here, but I'm just going to throw it in here because I think it's important, is that like really focusing on injury and safety is also very, very important. Again, when you're younger, I'm going to use again, throwing myself under the bus this whole episode, but I would max out regularly for deadlifts in the 300s, 400s, questionable form, but because I was 22, 23, kind of got away with it. Not training that I would recommend now, not training that I would recommend to other people, but you kind of get away with it and didn't get hurt. Um, you just can't max out regularly or like not care about form as you get older. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you need perfect form like right out of the gate, or that if your dumbbell row isn't perfect, that like you can't dumbbell row. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that like you need to make it even more of a priority to improve your form over time. And if it's an exercise that you're not comfortable with yet, don't lift heavy. Like if you're, barbell deadlifting is not an unsafe exercise. At the same time, if it is an exercise you are not comfortable with yet, and you want to like check out what your max is, or you're going to do like a really heavy triple or really push yourself, I would wait until you feel comfortable with the technique on that, and also plan it into your program appropriately. That when I work with people who they want to see where their max is, I just worked with someone who maxed out their deadlift recently. We didn't just like, okay, go for it. We structured the plans that their body was ready to lift heavy. We gave them a bunch of rest days beforehand so that like they didn't do like a heavy leg day the day before and then worked out. You want to structure that appropriately, and I think that becomes more important in your 40s where like yes, when you're 21, 22, you probably can just max out regularly and you might be fine. Again, this is not me advocating for this. I'm just saying like you're more likely to get away with it. You're probably not going to get away with it in your 40s, or it could go either way. And why take the risk? So something to keep in mind is that like safety, proper form, while they are always a priority for trainers of any age, I would say as you get older, they become even more of a priority. And like knowing when to lift light, knowing if you're going to lift heavy, how do we approach this, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my message for you today. For if you want to build strength after 40 years old, you definitely can. And I don't want these negative things to stop you from pursuing those. But you might not lift like the 21-year-olds anymore. And like that's okay. You just need a little bit more structure. You can still lift heavy. You can have even similar goals. So, if you want like a big deadlift or a big bench, like that's cool. Great. I have those goals. I think that's awesome. But you just have to structure it out. Having a plan is important focusing on safety, proper rest between sets and between workout days is also going to matter a lot more. And how fast you build strength and build muscle is probably going to be slower. Again, not non-existent. You can get like many people I'm working with, 40s, 50s, getting stronger, building muscle, all that. But how fast you build is probably going to be a little bit slower. Nothing wrong with that. The last thing, I think this is where a lot of things can go wrong, is that you need a workout plan that fits your life. So you're a busy person now. You're in your 40s. You might have kids. You might have a business. You might be more into your career. That might have like more of a leadership position. Like you're just your life is not fitness, and that's fine. Your life doesn't need to be fitness. Most people I work with, their life is not fitness. Like they have other responsibilities going on. Totally fine. But you need a workout plan that like actually fits what your life is like. If I give you a 6 days a week program for an hour and a half each workout, it is unlikely that fits realistically your life. But doing a program that's more quality over quantity is also going to matter a lot more. And so for that reason, look at your life, look at like how much you can realistically train most of the time. Not like if you really push yourself. Like if I tell you, hey, you're going to train 3 days a week, I want you to think, yeah, I could probably do that. That's probably fine. And then make a program based off of that. And then if it is too much training, adjust as needed. You can always add more workouts if you're finding like, you know what, like I usually can get 3 days a weekend. Let's try a fourth. That's totally fine. But I would rather you shoot too low and then add workouts than commit to a 6 day a week training program that just doesn't make sense with where your life is at. So something to keep in mind as well. Yes, a workout plan, but also one that fits your life, which tends to be a more complicated question than for most people when they were like 21, 22. Let me know if you want to talk about this more in the future about strength training as you get older. I think it's a really valuable thing to talk about. And yeah, thanks for listening to another episode of the Badass Lifter podcast.